Stage 3 returned last night with its first day of action after a long mid-season break, which brought 4 exciting and entertaining matches that have already given us early indicators about the strength of certain teams, as well as a reveal of some of the team's third kits. So in this video, I'm going to discuss what happened and see how my predictions fared before looking ahead to Friday's matches. Kicking off the opening day was a series that pitted our Stage 2 champions, the San Francisco Shock, in a clean black and orange camo kit against the rollercoaster Atlanta Reign, repping the peach colours of their home state Georgia. The teams, to no one's surprise, came out on Ilios on 3-3 goats, and from the first fight, it appeared that Atlanta were looking to utilise a similar strategy to the one that brought them success against New York. Yet instead of engaging onto the main tank, recognising the more aggressive style of their opponents, they allowed San Francisco to push forward before then splitting off Super and Rascal from the rest of their team, where they'd be then focused down. And initially this strategy seemed to catch the Shock off guard, being able to pick off Rascal early and often, which saw them gain a lot of early control percentage on Lighthouse. In the end, however, once they captured the objective, the Shock looked far more comfortable, taking the first round of Ilios. This then took us on to Ruins, and this was a similar story again, with the Reign finding early success, before San Francisco managed to eventually bring the point back, taking it to 99%, that put them on the verge of taking the first map. But in line with what's so far been a very sloppy start from the Shock, they were not able to prevent Atlanta from forcing overtime, and then inexcusably wasting their ultimates early without picking up any kills, which allowed the Reign to turn the fight around, flip the point, and steal what should have been the round and map for the Shock. With the rounds tied at 1-1, it went to well, and the first fight was decided by compositions, with the Shock's flex tank hook strat being annihilated by Atlanta's bunker setup. This proved costly, as San Francisco never managed to recover from the ult disadvantage, nor even take apart Reign's bunker, which let them take the round, and thus the map, giving Atlanta a surprising 1-0 map lead early on. With this surprising start, it looked like we might be in for another signature Atlanta upset. These feelings were heavily weakened as the teams took to the assault map Paris. The Shock seemed to return to their recognisable form, with a mature and dominant display behind Super and Rascal's Baptiste, which saw them hold off the Reign's attack at the first point after capturing only 2 ticks, before having little trouble wiping the Atlanta on their own attack to quickly take the map and tie the series 1-1 at the half. From here, many assumed that San Francisco would now have little trouble in taking the series, having gotten rid of some of the rust and sloppiness in their play. But this immediately was cast aside, as Hollywood started playing out in a similar fashion to Control, with Atlanta the team primarily in control. Not only was their strategy working perfectly, but it was Dako especially who was the key man in making it work, with excellent aggression and great value out of his Diva Bombs. Equally, as the Shock were abruptly stopped before the second checkpoint, it was noticeable for compounding the issues for the Shock with consistently late ultimates from Moth and Sinatra that were being used after one of their teammates had died, often leading to them getting little value out of them as a result. The Reign themselves were much more fluid and coordinated on their own attack, which comfortably saw them reach their objective and retake the lead 2-1 in the series. Without a doubt, everyone was on high alert for what now looked to be a very realistic upset, and the teams once again went neck and neck on the following map Gibraltar. Despite getting held up at the second section, San Francisco settled nerves with a quick finish, but left them with over 2 minutes left in their time bank, thanks to a dominant performance from Violet, who was consistently the Shock's best player throughout the day, as Atlanta could only manage an overtime finish and reply on the back of finally utilising a late ult advantage. But going into the second attacks, the Shock appeared to lose their concentration as they couldn't find a way to stop the Reign's push. With only a minute, they quickly went into overtime, but Atlanta managed to push the payload all the way to halfway through the second section, before Sinatra punished their passive positioning with a grab that made them C9, ending the round. Even with their 3-minute advantage, San Francisco needed the final fight in overtime, and a huge Choi Gravy to finally get them over the line, and even up the series at 2-2, taking us to a Game 5 on Oasis. Yet all those supporting the Reign began to lose some confidence, as with their backs to the wall, the Shock looked determined to get the W, steamrolling the first round. The second, however, was a nail-biter, flipping back and forth, ending at 99 to 99%. But once more, Sinatra managed to grab Atlanta off the point, forcing a C9 and confirming the 3-2 victory for his side. San Francisco on the whole looked sloppy throughout, but right now I'll put that down to less practice in the mid-season break, as their experience and quality in the end proved to be the difference, with Violet taking the Player of the Match award for his consistency and at times even carrying its side. Atlanta meanwhile were incredibly impressive, especially the trio of Dako, Pokpo and Massa, showing off their form from the NYXL series. But although this is a great start to Stage 3, they'll need to show this form against worse teams moving forward before we can be sure that they are legit. After this amazing back and forth series came one that proved to be the polar opposite, as the Florida Mayhem and their Miami black kit with neon blue and pink highlights took on the Seoul Dynasty. One of the 5 teams without a new kit to show off. The main talking point from this match was the lineup that Seoul was running, which was slightly different to the one I've been mentioning, as Fisher, Fletter and Hiley started alongside Michelle, Toby and Fitz. Now whilst their kit looked great, it never translated itself into Florida's performance, as a control map on Oasis was nothing short of a stomp. Fate was just bullied by Fisher with no support from his teammates, as the Mayhem just looked slow and off the pace, even if they managed to capture quite a bit of the point percentage. The second round was even worse, as BQB Sombra found no value, not once catching Hiley, who countered it with Transcendence on each occasion, as the Dynasty quickly took a 1-0 lead in the series. Heading into Paris, the divide was highlighted further, as Seoul rolled on without an issue to finish the map with 5.5 minutes remaining, as Florida left it late to take point A, before being convincingly held at point B as time expired, giving Seoul a 2-0 lead at halftime. The series so far was not close at all, and the Dynasty looked set to romp the remainder of the maps, with their new look roster looking very impressive as we headed into Hollywood. This time, however, Florida started to put up more of a fight, stalling Seoul occasionally, but a Michelle Gravit ended their final defense as the Dynasty finished with only 4 seconds remaining in their time bank. Yet in reply, the Mayhem looked to be doing even better than the Dynasty for quite some time, heading into the final section with a comfortable time bank. But once again, typical uncoordinated play and wasted ultimates turned what should have been a guaranteed map completion into Florida being held, which in turn confirmed the Dynasty series win, up 3-0, with the teams lastly heading into Havana for its Overwatch League debut. Illicit was subbed in for Fletter, but it appeared that the Mayhem were far more practiced at the map, with a very strong early bunker comp, assisted by Zephyr stalling the payload on May, which for a long time stumped Seoul, putting them on the back foot early. And it was only thanks to Illicit popping off on Hanzo in a great duel against Sire player's Widow that they completed the first section. This left them with little to no time heading into the second section, where in fact they stumbled once again, only reaching the halfway mark, before Florida impressively halted and ended their attack. The Dynasty's defense, meanwhile, appeared much less practiced, as the Mayhem Sombra Goats reached the second section with 4 minutes in the time bank. On multiple occasions they held the advantage and should have completed the map with superior numbers and ult advantage, but each time they were held. Eventually, Florida killed most of the Dynasty players and looked set to secure the map, but the entire time they had no point presence at all, which allowed Seoul's respawns to arrive just in the nick of time, as they extraordinarily turned the last fight around to win the map and confirm the 4-0 series win. The Mayhem were awful throughout and really should have done better in the second half, picking up at least one map, having thrown away Havana. Which is why, although they ended up 4-0 winners, with great performances from all their players, with highly taken Player of the Match award, Seoul and their fans need to exercise a little caution, as the second half of the series was much tighter, and in the end they should have lost the map, and they probably would have if they were playing a harder opponent. The third match of the day pitted the entertaining matchup between the Chinese teams of the Guangzhou Charge and Chengdu Hunters, which predictably on Oasis was never going to be much of a goats affair. The first round pitted a Sombra Wotes Charge side against the Hunters' triple DPS, and it was Eileen who stepped up and owned the show on Sombra, with his team really just leaving the Meng alone. They time and again annihilated the Hunters' backline, convincingly taking the first round, as now, with the assistance of Happy Soldier and Hotbus Farah, it was a similar story in the second round, as Guangzhou quickly and dominantly found themselves taking map 1. While Sky saw a better start from Chengdu, as they utilised the snowball ability of their comp to complete the map with over 4 minutes remaining, after breaking through the Charge's defense, but this was almost matched for time by Guangzhou on their own attack. Happy and Yang Xiaolong engaged in some great Widow duels, but on balance it just seemed like the Charge were getting the better of the triple DPS matchup. This proved to be disastrous for the Hunters, who felt that they had to respond on Goats, but all this change seemed to do was highlight the difference in the teams further, as they only managed an overtime completion on their second attack, giving the Charge one last attack after they blitzed through their own second attack with over 2 minutes left to go. Chengdu did force overtime, but it proved not to be enough, as Guangzhou took the map and a 2-0 lead into the break, and it finally looked as if Chengdu were receiving proper comeuppance for what had now become a very predictable strategy and style. Eichenwald was a strange affair, where the teams found some early defensive success, but following the teams taking the first point, the defences failed with both sides rolling through to the map completions. This repeated itself on the second attacks as well, with the Charge just stopped before the end. Nero was making his debut for Guangzhou, and he looked very good on Zarya and Farah, in a good duel against Yang Xiaolong. Beside Rio, who himself impressed and proved a deciding factor with a huge shatter that ended the Hunters' second push just short of their target, guaranteeing the series win at 3-0 for the Charge, after just edging out the map. The final map Dorado saw Jikurin make his own debut for Chengdu, who explicitly ran just goats. And dare I say, it actually looked quite solid and impressive. They completed the map and ended up holding Guangzhou to just before the end to take a consolation map in the series that ended 3-1. The Chargers started off on the right foot, but of course their game against Seoul on Saturday will give us a better idea of their overall strength. As for the Hunters, I'm afraid to say that changes may be coming, with their predictable triple DPS finding little success, whilst to everyone's surprise their 3-3 goats did, which they may look to run more moving forward. The final series of Stage 3's Curtain Raiser Day was the LA Valiant versus the Shanghai Dragons, and Map 1 on Oasis felt very similar to the previous series, as the Valiant was torn to shreds by Ding Sombra, as Shanghai picked up where they left off last stage, with a fast and impressive start that saw them take an early 1-0 map lead. LA's new look lineup still looked to be coming together fully, with Kariv starting ahead of Iziaki, as Fax Fiction was making his Valiant debut. Ultimately, however, it was KSF who impressed for them early on Zarya, and helped them to a very quick push on their first Paris attack. But even this wasn't enough to match the 2-minute speedrun that the Dragons had completed just before them. Whilst LA didn't look bad, Shanghai just looked better, halting the Valiant's second round attack at point B, before blitzing through to win the map with ease, giving them a 2-0 lead at the half. Numbani only seemed to get worse for LA, having no response to the Dragons' triple DPS, featuring Ding's Farah, DM's Widow, and Youngjin's Doomfist, which then turned into their signature Sombra Goats comp, as they finished the map with over 3 minutes remaining. Gamsu and Luffy led their first point defense, that full held the Valiant, who offered nothing on their own attack, resulting in Shanghai quickly locking up the series at 3-0, as the teams headed into the final map of the day on Gibraltar. Here, the Valiant started to finally kick things into gear, with a very solid first section defense, with Space stepping up as the main man to lead them in shutting down the Dragons' triple DPS comp, eating up DM's grab for good measure as time expired. This gave LA a very good chance of picking up a consolation map, but it did not be easy, as they too got stuck at a similar part of the map. But in the end, they were able to catch DM out of position early in a teamfight, which allowed them to roll the payload through to the end, to win the map and end the series 3-1. Shanghai once again looked strong, with Ding unsurprisingly picking up the Player of the Match award, and it's this form they'll need to continue moving forward. As the Valiant looked a little lost and uncoordinated, which perhaps is down to their new look side, with Fact Fiction and Kariv now appearing to be set in place as starting positions. Now quickly looking at my predictions, just as a reminder to those who are new here, no matter the score, I take the result as the determining factor in saying whether I was right or wrong. And with that, my predictions went 3 out of 4 for last night's matches. Atlanta put up a greater fight than I anticipated, and even though Florida didn't, it's important to remember they should have picked up at least one map. Guangzhou surprisingly looked pretty good, as the predictably of Chengdu once again proved to be their downfall, and the Valiant against Shanghai series went pretty much how I expected. But looking ahead to Friday's matches, we begin with the Paris Eternal against Toronto Defiant, which I reckon will just fall in Toronto's favour, even if they're running their new lineup. I expect it to still be close, so I'm going with a 3-2 victory. The Boston Uprising vs London Spitfire series is one that has as much chance as being a stomp as super tight, and I'm hoping for the latter, and my gut is telling me to back Boston for the upset in a narrow 3-2 win. New York then face off against the Houston Outlaws, which should be a 4-0 one-sided massacre, before the fantastic close to the day as the LA Gladiators play the Dallas Fuel in what should be a very telling match for the balance of power, but I think it'll be the boys in purple who just have the edge in a 3-2 win. And with that, we've reached the end of my Stage 3 Week 1 Day 1 review. I'd like to thank you for watching. I'll be back again tomorrow with my review of tonight's action, so if you enjoyed and don't want to miss out, please like and subscribe for this continuing Overwatch League coverage and content.